This is the show that has a proven track record.
It's a two-way street. You should be coaching for them while they play for you.
This is a show that has a real approach to sports.
Based on that situation, is it a possibility in my mind? Absolutely.
This is a show that's not going to give you the sweet stuff.
And he almost forces the hand of management. I mean, management almost has to, almost owes it to the fan base at this point.
This is the award-winning show that's giving you the truth, just like they always have.
What are we talking about?
Where are we at in society today?
Listen and learn.
This is Delay of Game, the Sports Talk podcast.
All right, welcome into the show. End of January. As we have reached that point, believe it or not. Glad to have you in. Ryan Swanigan, Brent Bonfleur,
Hey,
Matt Rigby. And very good show lined up for you today. Got a lot of things to discuss. One of them breaking just this morning, so we are not going to mess around here. Let's get right into it.
It's now time for a little R&R.
Ryan's rant, that is. Back to the explosion of a topic that Ryan has in store for today's podcast.
Yeah! Woo! Ah! Take it out!
There's something that's just really bothering the guy, and now you're about to find out what it is.
You gotta be kidding me!
Nobody's tackling anybody! Do it live!
There's some absurd things going on in the world of sports, and Ryan's pretty fired up about them.
Hello? You kidding me?
They are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook.
That's not true!
And now, here's the original Delay of Game produced, Ryan's Rant.
Yeah, the original topic that we had in store for the rant today was the reason between why people, have a lot more respect for Peyton Manning versus Cam Newton, but that's going to be pushed back. Brent Bonfleur is going to cover that topic later. Because this morning, ESPN's Outside the Lines doing the job that they really are looked to do, which is, I guess, good and bad in the sense that we're going to get to here in a moment. But once again, bringing to light the disgusting aspect of college sports and the continuous reason why I am very adamant about how we should not be paying football players, because some of them just decide to make choices that are beyond disgusting. This morning, Outside the Lines releasing a report. The title of it is called "Baylor Faces Accusations of Ignoring Sex Assault Victims." Now, this is a little bit different than what has happened in previous cases where the football players have been protected and, there's a whole bunch of other protection things going on. This is a case where the university didn't really do any protecting because the two football players involved, I believe, at least one of them for sure, is in jail, to be honest. From what I read and what I listened to and watched this morning from the report, the accused suspect, I guess, in this case, is actually currently in jail on sexual assault charges. But getting back to Baylor, the point of this is that they really didn't address the situation or the scenario, whichever you want to call it. They basically did not help the victims in this case. And there were 5 of them, from what I have heard, from this one football player, stemming back to, I believe they say, 2011. Again, and we have discussed this on previous shows when we were on KRNU. It is come to the point where you want to know not how many more institutions this will happen, that this situation will happen to, but more importantly, how many more women have to be raped before an institute, a college institution, decides to step up and actually do the right thing, take action that we are all expecting them to take, instead of worrying about protecting the, I don't know, Brent, what am I looking for here, or Matt, the protect their, protecting themselves.
Reputation?
Let's go with that. Protecting their own reputation. Because you would think that when you go to the defense of the women involved in the cases, I guess, that would be protecting your reputation. That would be stepping up to the plate and getting the job done, making sure that the students who make up your university are protected, and that they know that if something happens to them, God forbid, that they are protected, that they will not be seen as the problem, more so as the person that needs help and gets help and will receive it. The football players don't need help. Let me make that clear. We're already giving them enough help as it is now with this max $5,000 a year stipend or semester stipend. I don't know what it is. I don't care. Again, I argued this a year ago when the idea of paying the student athletes, basically paying the football players, was brought up. You want to pay students and student athletes who are on their own, who have a rather large sense of entitlement that is in their mind, and you want to build upon that. You want to give them even more of the world that they don't deserve. That is essentially what you are saying when you play the football players. And where do a lot of these rape allegations come from? The football players. Now, I don't think that those two really need to be mixing. I really do not believe that an institute that pays its football players should also be allowed to even get into a scenario where they are throwing the victims of rape down to the, they're casting them aside as if they're nothing. This is a serious matter. Missouri didn't take it seriously. Baylor apparently hasn't taken it seriously. Florida State did not take it seriously. There are probably other institutions out there where this has happened that we don't know about. I can't think of the other ones in which we do know. Duke, I think, comes to mind, but that one is still a little bit more questionable than some of the other ones that are known facts for sure, like Missouri or Baylor or Florida State. Hell, there's even a Title IX investigation going on right now at the university I just graduated from, and Matt and Brent are still attending Nebraska. The fact that this is still happening and that we are still seeing the same exact results, universities not stepping up to the plate and not attacking their own football players instead of, protecting them, or I take that back. They're protecting the players instead of attacking them, and casting the victims aside just continues to show there is a serious problem in college athletics, and it all goes to college football. Meanwhile, the student athletes are arguing the case that, we need to be played, man. Yes, they don't have time to go get a job outside of everything they are required to do. I understand that. But if you're telling me that there should be some sort of balance between protecting them and providing for them, that should not be happening. Because there is a fine line that needs to be walked. It has not yet been found by any institution on making sure the football players can get through, but also not building up their own sense of entitlement. Because that's where a lot of the problem lies in with these sexual assault cases, is a sense of entitlement. And a lot of people, at whichever chain of the university they are in, whether it be in the athletic department or it be, in the ranks of the board of governors for a university or whoever, they are not doing their job when it comes to telling these football players, guess what? Here's the reality. The world is not yours. You are not entitled to it. You have to work for it. You have to earn it. You just don't go out there and do whatever the hell you want. That's not how it works. And as for the institutions themselves, who think this is a good idea to ignore and ignore the victims, protect the athletic department, primarily the moneymaker of the university, which is football, it's time to wake up. It's time to figure out that this is not how society runs or should be running. Because you can bring in as many football players as you want. But if you are not bringing in the female population and protecting them at your university, that's when you start to crumble. Because let me tell you, women are a lot smarter than guys, especially in sports. I can guarantee you that. They actually have their head on a better swivel than guys do. They know what's up. So if you're telling me that we should be casting them aside when things like this happen to them, that needs to change. That definitely needs to change. And it should not be happening anywhere at all. It disgusts me to the highest level that these things are allowed to happen. More so the fact that the football players are protected. That's what I'm disgusted by. That and the fact that Baylor allegedly turned a blind eye to the whole scenario and just decided, oh, well, we're not going to really do much of anything about it as far as coming to the aid of the victims. That's what's disgusting. That and the fact that we step up to the plate to go protect the football players instead of stepping up to the plate to protect the victims, aid them, and make sure they receive justice. That's the problem. And that is, again, the continuous issue that nobody will address. Nobody has addressed so far at the college level. And it's pathetic, it's ridiculous, it's whatever you want to call it. Whatever trashy thing you want to throw towards that topic, that's what that is. It's absolutely absurd. And I still cannot believe that it just keeps on happening. Somebody step up to the other side of the plate, the right side of the plate. The side that goes to the aid of the victims and make sure they get justice. The football players don't need justice. They're getting enough attention as it is on the football field with these stipends, with the national media coverage. They're getting enough as it is. Hell, that'll aid the process for the victims. Because then the fall from grace for these football players will be even I guess it'll be worse or harsher than it would be for the university. Although it probably would be the same for the university. I would hope it would be if the university decided to protect its players. That's not how it should be. That's not how it should be. Protecting the players. In cases like this, it's outrageous. It's just outrageous. So we'll see what the fallout from this is going forward in the days and weeks and possibly months here on after. It's like I said, it's just unfathomable. It's just really unfathomable. Brent, Matt, thoughts? Any thoughts?
Well, I think that this is it's a top-down problem, first of all. And I've always asked the question of people to provide, I've asked them to provide me a serious, tangible benefit of college athletics in general. And they give me some answers, but they don't hit on, I think there's a lot of ignorance, really, let me put it that way, to the amount of money that institutions are looking to protect and therefore the problems that creates. I mean, like, you could make a case that this is a problem, like, because there have been instances where, such as Duke lacrosse, where the players were actually found 100% innocent. And there was an argument made that the women in those cases were fishing because they knew that there could have been money to be had for them because there's so much money involved in these situations altogether. And that money, as you talked about for the last 10, 15 minutes, Ryan, it's protected in more cases than not by the university, and it's shameful. I mean, it's a problem on both ends, and it's a problem that I think, to put it bluntly, in my estimation, it shines a terrible light on our society's prioritizations, like American society, really. I mean, this is a total example of American people giving attention and giving money to that which they see as entertaining to them and prioritizing that over that which should be wholesome and moral. And yeah, it's a problem. It's a real problem. And I don't know how you solve it with the amount of, because it's unethical for these institutions to protect what they're protecting, but at the same time, I kind of get it, like they make so much money, like they're in the business of protecting that, and so the problem starts and ends with what have we allowed as a society college football to become, or the NFL to become? Like there reaches a point where we have to check every single person that feeds into the cash cows that allow these things to happen. Every single person has to check in the mirror what their moral prioritizations are at the end of the day.
Right.
And it's a systemic top-down problem. It's a societal problem. And it's sad. It's really sad.
I want to read a quote before we get to you, Brent, about this. From this ESPN article. Quote, a Baylor the girl who Outside the Lines interviewed at the time, or ESPN, a Baylor freshman at the time, was one of 5 women who reported to the police that they were either raped or assaulted in incidents from October 2009 to April 2012 by the accused football player, who was convicted of 2 counts of sexual assault in January of 2014 for the incident involving the main subject of this article, the victim, a Baylor who was a Baylor student at this time. And I think, and I listened to the video of this, and these 5 women did not know each other either, by the way. That's the other thing that just jumps out at you. It's like, this is not a plot against this player. And it usually never is, except as you mentioned, Matt, in that Duke scenario. This is all random. They connect to one thing, and that is the guilty party in this instance. So those of you doubting that, it's just one thing. No, there was 5 of them. There were 5 women, and they all don't know each other. That's what's ridiculous about it, Brent.
Oh, boy.
You were with me when we discussed this, when we discussed that Rashid Suleiman incident at Duke, weren't you?
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, this is, as you mentioned, Matt, it's a societal problem first, right? This happens everywhere. It happens a lot more on college campuses, and because of the factors, the alcohol, the partying, the close concentration
it's
of
the
all these
mingling,
people.
Yeah, it's the mingling of people. Yeah.
Right. It happens a lot with athletes. That article that Ryan was talking about, they interviewed a doctor in Waco, and she said almost that just the number of sexual assaults from Baylor alone is more than all the other area colleges combined, and that 25 to 50% of those. Now, these are just reported, right, to this one doctor. Right. So we're talking about like 8, right? 8 sexual assaults in 1 year. 25 to 50%, so 2 to 4 of those are by athletes. The article also mentions that male athletes make up 4% of Baylor's population. So, right, you think, well, it's only 2 or 4. Like, what's the big deal? 4%. And yeah, granted, we're talking about small numbers in just this one instance, this one doctor at one campus in 1 year. So the numbers are relatively small. But you multiply this by all the universities and all the years, and it becomes a massive problem. But 4% of the student population is accounting for 25 to 50% of the sexual assaults. And so it happens more on college campuses, it happens on larger college campuses, and it happens more frequently among athletes that are in big-time programs. And typically, like in the case of Jameis Winston or Suleiman, it's big, high-profile athletes. Mm-hmm. And I know there are people who disagree with me, and I'm going to bring up the Jack Gingrich thing. And first of all, I'm certainly not accusing Jack Gingrich of ever committing any sort of sexual assault or misconduct or anything. But I'm saying it's the same point that I make about him and the whole raccoon thing, that these athletes, and this is why it happens more at the bigger programs with the bigger athletes, is because they have been told their entire life, you can do whatever you want to do. You are great. They're put on a pedestal that elevates them so
they are given
high,
that sense of entitlement.
Yeah, that they think that they can do whatever they want to do.
Right.
And that's where the danger lies. It's not in the individual act, like with Gingrich. It's not that he killed a raccoon. It's that the mindset of someone like that to do that the way he did it. It's the same thing with these rape things. I can do whatever I want to this girl. I can physically dominate her and do whatever I want, and nothing's going to happen because no one is going to come back at me for this.
And you know what where that problem stems from is how that person, whoever it may be, that football player, is raised.
Yeah, well,
That's what it stems back to.
But I think what the bigger part is what you said, is it's society.
It's what we. I mean, this is a hierarchy that we create. I mean, that's seriously the way I see it. I mean, I don't think that something like this ends until we stop talking about it and like truly advocate, even within ourselves, doing something about it, to the point of like, at what point do we, remember I used the term last week, shower and steal wool. I mean, at what point do we stop doing that and just say, you know what, I'm done with college football because it's just so morally corrupt. You know, like some of this is within ourselves. Like, how much money does the average Nebraska citizen, and I'm not painting Nebraska or the University of Nebraska as a rape hotbed, but like, how much money does the average University of Nebraska citizen give to the football program, directly or indirectly, in a year? That if you think about it, it's like moral hazard. It allows this process to just keep pushing forward. You know, like they're like, well, we have to protect this, like, you know, and we have to protect the $1 billion, $1 million cash cow that this is. So I mean, this is so systemic that I think it's the biggest. Maybe not the biggest. I don't know if I want to use hyperbole totally there, but it's one of the biggest black eyes on American society.
Drastic.
It really is, and I think it goes so far beyond just analyzing the players. The players aren't going to change. Until you take away the system from them, you know, it's the system that's targeted.
You have to break them down. That's what it. That's essentially how you get to having them understand what they are doing is wrong. You break them down. Like, it's just like in the military. You break them down until you have created a molding of exactly what you need to have for somebody to be, you know, I guess mentally there for military standards, if I'm even speaking in correct terms with that. But you get my point, though. You have to break them down to get them to understand how this really needs to go.
Well, and Ryan, you start asking then, though, like, who breaks them down? Is it their head coach? Probably not, because he has a job. He has to keep good players on the team. Is it their parents? Probably not, because they're like, you know, if my kid doesn't go play college football, he's not doing anything in a lot of these cases. Is it the athletic director? No, he's getting paid. I mean, this is a systemic, like, you got to go to the top with this, you know? Like, you can't say, like, oh, they just need a little more direction. They just need a little more guidance. Like, we need to flip this house, you know, for lack of a better term. I've been thinking this for a while. I have almost reached a point where I've started to practice what I'm advocating, practice what I've preached in the last 5 minutes here, where sometimes I can't watch a college football game without thinking about these things and thinking, man, even by watching this, am I cultivating this culture even more? You know, like, do we need a total revolution against football, college football? It's really a college problem. Do we need a total revolution against college football? That's why I started my comments with, give me a tangible benefit of it. You know, like, we've lost what universities were meant to be at this point, I think. Like,
Yeah.
these are places of higher education where the athletics provide a positive culture to the environment or to the university and to the surrounding areas. Whew, we crossed that definition a long time ago.
Yeah.
And it's so sad because it's a no-win thing, no matter what happens. So countless times, just like in this story, there are girls who are sexually assaulted and raped, and nothing happens, right? Because how do you prove it? And the university does nothing because, well, why are we going to take time and resources on something we can't prove, right? And if it happens, then what happens to the girl? She just has to live with it and probably drops out of school, probably, may not wreck her entire life. In some cases it might, but it certainly, derails things for a long time. Like in the article we talked about, one of the victims tried to stay in school, but she just, she couldn't focus. She couldn't do her schoolwork because she just got raped. And then there are times when women falsely accuse men of raping them. High-profile athletes, it happens a lot with them, and that's just as bad. And it's
from the same root. It's just the same root
exactly.
of the problem.
It's not like either one is worth. They're both equally disgusting things. Men who rape women and women who falsely accuse men of raping them. And that's why it's a no-win situation because, I'm not like defending the universities here. I am to some degree because they can't always just say, okay, well, you're off the team and stuff because what if he didn't do it? And, you have to have something to prove. Now, at the same time, can they do more? Absolutely, yes, because they should use every resource, and they have the resources. We just talked about how much money they make.
Especially
use
a program like Baylor.
Right. Or any school.
Missouri,
any
Florida
school.
State, come on.
All these major programs, particularly football programs, have hundreds of millions of dollars. Or if not hundreds, then tens of millions of dollars. Why doesn't some of that money go towards investigating these things fully?
Right.
So it's really sad.
Yeah, very much so. I'm going to see if we can, we will probably, I bet you we will probably have a podcast later this week, if not next week, about this subject again, if further developments happen. Speaking of which, we are off next week, February 7th. No podcast to be released that day unless we get a couple of shows or a couple of special podcasts in, maybe one for sure. But just once again, just pile Baylor on the list with Missouri and Florida State and Duke and I can't think of the other ones.
I think it's insert institution here.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's pretty much every single one.
That's where we've gone to at this point in time and in society, and it's just really really frustrating. I mean, you insert word there to describe the scenario. It's really a disgrace.
This is Delay of Game,
a sports talk podcast. Available on YouTube and online at thedelayofgamepodcast.wordpress.com.
Delay of Game is going to the monitor and having a look at something controversial or crucial from the week in sports. It's under review.
All right, so now that we move on from that,
Super Bowl.
we still have a job to do here in bringing you sports topics. I'm sure we could go on this subject all day, but again, that's why we try to condense all this down and just bring you the different aspects of sports that's currently going on. And as Matt just said, got the Super Bowl on the way. I need some NFL music. I don't know which one I want. There we go. That's exactly the one I wanted.
So I downloaded a free trial of Madden 16 on my Xbox last night just to try it out, right? That's terrible. I don't like it at all.
Why not?
I don't know. It's just not as good as the previous ones. But granted, it was only a trial, so you had to play as either the Steelers or the Cardinals. So
Steelers or the Cardinals?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that happens is it makes you play this like reenactment of their Super Bowl game, and it takes like 20 minutes just to even get to like the main menu because you got to play through this game, and it like tells you press B to throw to Antonio Brown for a touchdown. And it's silly. But, like, the gameplay, it's just terrible.
Do you guys remember when I believed all along in the Broncos? I believed all along. I believed.
Getting into the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I didn't.
The actual current Super Bowl.
I didn't really believe, but...
You didn't believe?
No, I picked the Pats, remember? But
yeah.
You gotta be kidding me!
Man, what a time to be alive, huh, fellas?
Oh, man.
What a blessed time in my life as a sports fan.
This is a... Well, for you, yeah. Because you actually have an NFL team.
That's a World Series and a Super Bowl.
Yeah. And both of them could end up losing.
Okay.
Feels good.
Okay.
I'm sorry, my friend. I couldn't help that one.
Oh, no, I've heard it.
I couldn't.
I've heard it already.
Well, let's get into it then, because obviously I was going to say the Super Bowl, not exactly as controversial as the whole Baylor scenario. So I guess we should have flip-flopped these things. But anyways, I wanted to lead off with that. Getting to the Super Bowl, first of all, Denver, that was Peyton Manning finally coming back to life a little bit. Not exactly, Peyton Manning putting up 40-plus points, but still, that was a grinded-out Peyton Manning turning back the clock a little bit and getting the job done. And I loved seeing that.
I think that's interesting that you start with that. Because I agree. I do agree. I thought 18 played a really good game. I thought I was commentating to various people throughout. I thought that he was really threading the ball really well. Especially in the first half. I think he lost a touch a little bit in the second half. He missed a couple throws. He missed a throw on the last drive that would have put the game away. He had Jordan Norwood open on a post in the end zone. And he was still missing. I'd say if he had 5 passes, he would miss 2. I mean, but he stepped up and made some really good throws. And I think lost in everything offensively was the fact that, and I cannot believe that the Broncos won a football game in the playoffs this way. They could not run the ball at all. It was a totally absent run game.
Yeah.
And he had to overcome that. So although he didn't light up the stat sheet, like you said, Ryan, he had to overcome a non-existent running game, an O-line that could not block the Patriots' front. Pretty persistent pass rush. I mean, everyone focused on how pressured Brady was. Manning had a lot of pressure in his face, up the A-gaps a lot. So he had to overcome that, and like I said, the stat sheet wasn't lit up, but the things he did and some of the throws he made inside of the game were old Peyton. Yeah, they were old.
It was grinded out Peyton Manning.
Yeah, and I was really happy for him. I was happy. I know that the narrative for the Broncos is still, and rightfully so, their defense. But I was happy that Peyton hushed some people again last week. He said, I can still do this. I mean, I think he's only got one more game in his career left.
Yeah.
But
I kind of hope that's the case too.
Yeah.
And I'll explain why in a little bit. But yeah.
But he did it for one game, and I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
But that, what, more than anything else, the reason I said that I thought it was interesting you started with that. That was a 60-minute Tom Brady manhunt. That was an assault. I have never seen anything like that in my life. That was an assault.
It was. I don't know if I can one up you on calling it what it was. It was that. It was literally like watching
rabid dogs.
Well, you know how in soccer how there you can just tell in a lot of soccer games where if they're on one side of the field for a good portion of the game, that team that is doing the attacking on that side of the pitch they're going to win the game.
Same applies to hockey. They call that the ice being tilted.
Yeah. That was what it felt like. Yeah. Is those scenarios. Denver just kept on blasting through the Patriots' offensive line. Some of them at some points almost untouched. It was just shocking. Meanwhile, on the other side of the country, in Carolina...
What happened there? Because I remember we were talking about, like, predicting those games. You know, I said it was going to be close between New England and Denver, which it was, exactly as billed as you'd expect. And then it was going to be high scoring, but close between the other ones. And then what? What happened to Arizona, man?
I turned it off and went to bed after the first quarter because I was like, this is not going to be a game.
That was incredible. I think if there's any team top to bottom that's actually more talented than the Panthers, it was the Cardinals, and they just, I mean, that was like choke job.
Yeah.
And I was like, sorry, but Peyton Manning-esque, you know.
Bad Peyton Manning was Carson Palmer. They must have switched over the weekend in an airport somewhere.
Awful, yeah. And Carolina, I mean, you knew they were good, and I thought they were going to win the game, but wow.
I think that connecting flight for Arizona stopped in Denver, and Peyton Manning and Carson Palmer must have switched abilities or something, you know?
There you go.
Wow.
Looking forward to the Super Bowl now, it's like as good as Denver's defense is, and, as I guess we'll use the word resurgent Peyton Manning is right now, it's like after watching that, I mean, what hope does any team have, right? Like, you could take the Pro Bowl team that's going to play tonight and throw them up against Carolina, and I'd still probably pick the Panthers. Like, they're that good.
I'll tell you why. Tom Brady is not as mobile and quick as Cam Newton. There's two styles of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Tom Brady is the traditional pocket passer, but when he needs to scramble, he can scramble and he can do it well. Cam Newton is the taller version of the most dangerous dual threat quarterback. Russell Wilson is the dual threat quarterback. He's the average dual threat quarterback, maybe above average. He's the best one. Cam Newton is now the better one because Cam Newton can run, can throw, stay in the pocket, get out of the pocket, scramble. He can do whatever he needs to do to make sure that the play is a positive. And rarely do you see it as a negative. I mean, the second half of the Seahawks game is when you started seeing some negatives, but still, that team is just rolling right now in how good they are.
Cam Newton is really incredible. Because, I mean, you think about his career, and, most people didn't hear about him until they went to Auburn. I hadn't heard about him until he went to Auburn. But he won in junior college. I'm sure he won in high school. I don't know if he won a national championship. I think he did. But then he won one in college with Auburn, and people are like, all right, like, this guy's really good, but, is he... like a transcendent player, and I think he's starting to prove that he is, because I don't know what the list is of quarterbacks who have won both a collegiate national championship and an NFL Super Bowl, and it's like two guys.
I think it's three.
Okay. You can count them on one hand, I think.
Steve Young, Joe Montana, and there's a third one in there that's farther back, I think.
You can look that up.
I'm going to look that up, yeah.
But despite all the doubts, I mean, if you look at the NFL this season, is there any quarterback that you want on your team more than Cam Newton? I mean, maybe there is, but for me, I mean, it's like, why would you want any other guy? I mean, he's probably the best player in the NFL this year.
What do you think, Matt?
Well,
try to eliminate your bias a little bit.
Oh, no, I did. Remember, I did that last week.
He picked against his own team.
I'm always honest about the Broncos. I think dumb money is with Carolina right now. I really do. I think that, first, let me step back to last week. Arizona turned the ball over 7 times. Yeah. You know how many times...
Not going to win.
You know how many times in a game a team turns the ball over 7 times? I mean, that is such an anomaly. The Broncos haven't turned the ball over 7 times in their last 7 games combined. So that's the first thing that allows Carolina to win 49-15. And a lot of those turnovers, I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Carolina's good. I mean, I'm not disputing that at all. But a lot of those turnovers were Carson Palmer totally withering up in the limelight. So,
that's definitely an example of where they lost that game.
Right. I mean, there was a question the next day. I was in the weight room, just Around the Horn was on, and the question flashed on the screen: was it Carolina being good or Arizona being bad? I think that's a fair question.
Definitely.
I'd probably answer it with Carolina being good, but Arizona was bad. So
very bad.
Let's say we level the playing field a little bit more. Denver's not turning the ball over 7 times. If they do, they're going to lose. We don't even have to have this discussion. So let's say the turnover battle's equal. So we got to make all things equal here to talk about the game. So the turnover battle's equal because you really can't predict that kind of stuff. And then from there, is there a 5-point difference with Carolina? I don't know, because the Panthers create turnovers at a prolific rate, but the Broncos also protect the ball at a pretty prolific rate. They've lost 1 fumble all year. People don't know that. So, Carolina, when I say dumb money, they've won these games in blowout fashion because they've won the turnover battle. I think when you eliminate those and you put the teams head-to-head, they're a lot more equal because, man, when I watched the Broncos in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, I made a statement to some people that game would change football moving forward. Now, I thought 4, 5, 6 years down the road, and I meant, there was a trend in college, high school, professional football at that time, watching the Broncos with their prolific offense, that, man, offense is the new thing. We're going to have a transition to offense. Seattle completely obliterates them in the playoffs or in the Super Bowl with a better defense. And I'm thinking, okay, 4, 5, 6 years down the road, defense is going to be the story. It's going to be the teams are going to start to remold their personnel. Within 2 years now, just 2, number 1 and number 2 defenses are playing in the Super Bowl. And one of the teams that was the offensive juggernaut 2 years ago has already retooled to become a defensive juggernaut. So it's already been retooled. You get the number 1 and number 2 defenses, and you're bound to have a close game. I think I've said about the Broncos all year, they are blowout proof. No one can blow them out. And Carolina's the same way because their defenses are too good. This is going to be a closer game. To sum up my original point, this is going to be a closer game than Vegas thinks. So now if I look at the game...
Really?
I believe so, yeah. If I look at the game from matchup standpoint and from an actual X's and O's standpoint, I think this game, and Ryan, you kind of hit on this, this game is a defensive line versus defensive line battle. And so I think everyone saw last week that the Broncos can get edge pressure. Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware, their reputations alone say that they can get edge pressure. But you made it. This is where you made your good point, Ryan. Tom Brady can't escape edge pressure. He's not going up the middle. When the pocket collapses out wide, he's not stepping up and then escaping and getting 5, 6, 7, 8 yards. Cam Newton can get forward. Brady couldn't get forward. If Cam senses pressure from the outside, Cam gets forward still, and then it's a scramble. And aside from that, the Panthers design an average, I read this week, an average of 9. It designed 9 rushes for Cam a game.
That's incredible.
So that's just like A-gap running right there to totally eliminate Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware, any edge pressure. So for me, the key for Denver's D-line is how much of a push can they get in the A-gaps and, the nose tackles, the really up front in the trenches. That's where the game's won for the Broncos defensively. And they've done that most of the year, but Carolina's O-line has also kept Cam completely clean in those center guard areas the most for the entirety of the year. So that's the key there. For Carolina, their defensive line is like a never-ending door, a revolving door of studs against the run. K1 Short, or against the pass, K1 Short, Star Latulilalele. They've got a million guys that they just kind of cycle in and out. Jared Allen might even still play in the game. He's not been 100% ruled out. So, but they don't play the run very well. So if the Broncos can establish the run against that defensive line and keep the tempo, and I thought Tom Brady used this term last week, play on their terms. That's the key for both these teams. Which team can play on their own terms and keep Peyton clean, then I think that Denver has a chance if they can minimize the Carolina D-line. So it's going to be an offensive line game. Who can subdue the other team's defensive line? I don't think it's one in the secondary. I think that's basically a wash. The linebackers are a wash. It's a matter of what do the Broncos do versus Cam, and can Carolina stop the run game for Denver?
Right. By the way, 2. You were right. It is 2.
Mm-hmm.
It is Joe Montana and Joe Namath. Those were the 2.
Yeah.
Joe Namath with Alabama won a Super Bowl. Joe Montana with Notre Dame, and of course, won 4 Super Bowls.
Yeah. I agree.
So, yeah.
I think that the best way to look at these games is the matchups, individual matchups and stuff. And I always like to look, okay, so who wins this, or do they cancel out, right? And you just do it numerically. Like, okay, Carolina wins this matchup, Denver wins this one, and you just compile the numbers, and whoever has the higher number at the end, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to go with that team.
I think you have to make all things equal in games like this. And that's what I was talking about with dumb money. Again, I mean, like, if Vegas says that the line is 5 because they predict a 7-1 turnover battle again, well, then I don't need to watch the game. You know, if it's 7-1, then okay, I won't turn it on for either side. You know, so you have to make all things equal and go matchups like that. I agree.
Right. I think though, it's almost a moot point in my mind, at least. This is just my opinion, but I just think that, you know, like you said, the secondaries are pretty much equal. Linebacking cores fairly equal. You got star power and Kuechly. I think more consistency with Denver.
Across the board, yeah.
Defensive lines, I think you probably give the edge to Denver there. You know, so overall defense is pretty much equal. Like you said, they're number 1 and number 2. So we'll give the edge to Denver there. But then I look at the Broncos offense, and it's just like, aside from, you know, Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas, I think it's a complete sweep by Carolina. I mean, the running backs, Jonathan Stewart, you know, he's better than Hillman or C.J. Anderson. Now, granted, C.J. Anderson's kind of like a wild card, man. He can be so good sometimes, like he was last year to end that, like, what was it, like 6-game stretch or whatever, where he just tore it up, or maybe that was 2 years ago. But
that was last year.
Yeah, last year. But then he looks awful sometimes. And I think, you know, if you're talking about Peyton Manning in his prime, then I think the quarterback's situation is a little bit different. But I think now, and I know we just knock on Peyton because he's old and he's slow, whatever. He's still very good. But Cam, like I said, I mean, he's like transcendent. And I just think that, you know, as good as Denver is, and I agree with you, I don't think this is going to be a blowout by any stretch, but I don't think that it's really going to be as close as maybe the score indicates. And I wouldn't be surprised if at the end Carolina pulls away with something based on like a turnover or something. But
Broncos games all year, though, haven't been as close as the score indicates, meaning there's been a lot of games they should have lost that they won. I mean, they find ways to win them.
Right.
So,
well, same thing with Carolina. I mean, they're a very good fourth quarter team. Yeah, they have like 30-point blowout wins, but they also come back in the fourth quarter. And it's very different styles. I think they're more versatile than Denver. So if we're predicting the game, I think you guys know who I'm going with here.
Yeah,
but
let's.
This is my kind of game, though. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, to just make an overall statement on the landscape of the NFL right now, and to talk about the statement I made 2 years ago about changing football going forward. I don't love the 50-point colossal like that we were getting, especially at the college level. I remember there was that same year as the Broncos' record-setting offensive year. The SEC championship game was Auburn, Missouri that year, and it was like 60-58 or something. And I was like, I don't like these games. This Super Bowl is my kind of football game. Number 1, number 2 defenses. That's how football should be played to me. Anyway,
the two top teams against each other, and this year we actually have it.
The Patriots Seahawks Super Bowl. That was like my perfect sort of game.
Oh yeah,
what was it 27-24?
Yeah,
yeah. I mean that's like the perfect score. I think you're averaging about a touchdown a quarter. One team gets held to a field goal here, or turnover here, and it ends at the one possession game. I mean,
can't at the 1 yard line,
and it's still exciting though because when they're scoring 2 touchdowns a quarter, it's just like it's exciting. It's fun to watch. To me, that's more fun than the 6-3 slugfest or 6-9 slugfest like LSU, Alabama type of game.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But still, I think the best thing is, averaging about a touchdown a quarter. Yeah, and just coming down to basically where they play to a draw in the first 3 quarters, and then they just decided in the last 15 minutes. So I hope that's what it is. I think it'll be something relatively like that. I think that Carolina has potential though to sort of cover that spread and pull away late.
Matt Rigby.
Bias aside, in all honesty, I like Denver in this game. I really do. I think the Broncos win.
I'm going to go with the Panthers. Couple of things with this. I really want to see how the Denver defense handles Cam Newton because
it's the matchup of the game. It is.
Yeah, because nobody has really been able to figure out Cam Newton except the Seahawks in the second half. Yeah. But that's because I think the Panthers kind of just, they let off the throttle and thought, they had the game and they almost lost it. But the other thing I really want to see, though, is
Coldplay. No, anyway.
Well, Coldplay and Beyonce, man.
That was so weird. Can we talk about that for a second?
Can I finish? We'll talk about that in a second.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Ryan.
Yeah, no, you're good. That was a good one, though. I want to see how Peyton Manning handles the Panthers' defense.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if the Panthers' front seven is... Well, I shouldn't say that. They're the same as the Broncos' front seven, I would say. They're equally both the same. The secondary, though, I'll tell you, man, if the Broncos' offensive line can give Peyton just a few seconds, 3 or 4, maybe 5, just enough to get somebody like Demaryius Thomas or Owen Daniels, somebody... Or Emmanuel Sanders. Give Emmanuel Sanders some time to get down the field one-on-one with somebody. That might be the wild card of this game, is the Panthers secondary, because it's better than the Patriots. I don't think it's as good as the Broncos secondary.
I agree.
I think there's a couple of cracks in their secondary where the Broncos defense, who was it that got hurt last week?
TJ Ward.
Darren
Stewart got hurt.
Yeah, those two guys get hurt, and you bring in Bradley Roby. You bring in another guy. The Denver defense can plug those holes.
Oh, yeah.
Because they've got great backup cornerbacks and safeties. Carolina... We've seen what happens when a couple of those guys get hurt for the Panthers secondary. They're not as good. Denver is when they get hurt.
I think the reason I said that the secondaries are equal is because they're not equal. Denver's is a little better. But man, Carolina's, that one side's taken away because of Josh Norman.
Yeah, but that's okay, though, because there are multiple weapons still for Peyton to utilize. That's why I say... If the Broncos' offensive line can give him a few seconds, he can look off whoever Josh Norman is covering and fire it to somebody else. Because again, I just list. I'm not a big Broncos fan. I like Denver. I can list off their receivers because there's so many of them.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas with one team, it's like, the Chiefs have Travis Kelce and Jeremy Maclin.
Well, and that'll be something to watch early. Like, does Denver come out throwing, or are they like, let's? Because I think they're going to try to run the football. I think that's Carolina's
try to establish that.
Right. I think Carolina's. Against Seattle 2 years ago, Denver comes out and tries to throw, and Peyton gets off his spot early because the Seattle pass rushers kind of pin their ears back. And you're playing behind the 8 ball at that point. From the start, they were like, they came out and got punched in the mouth. And I think that sometimes to just settle into a game, you have to run the football early. But I see what you're saying, Ryan, about there are some matchups to exploit, some mismatches to exploit there. So, yeah, the Peyton versus maybe attacking a safety, Roman Harper's the starting safety for Carolina. He's like 108 years old. So maybe going after that early, I could see that. And to one more thing, because I think you're hitting both sides of this on the head, Ryan. I think that you've got this game pretty accurately assessed. Watch early if the Broncos get Cam off of his spot. If Cam's been inaccurate at the low points in his career. It hasn't happened yet this year. If his first 2 or 3 passes are rushed and he skip, remember the old Cam that used to skip balls into the ground? You guys remember that? He'd throw off his back foot early in his career and it would be like a one hopper. Man, if there's a couple of those early, we know what kind of game this is. Settle in at that point is what I'm saying. If he comes out and does what Carolina's done the last 3 weeks, and he's firing ropes to Greg Olsen on posts 40 yards down the field, then Carolina's going to win. But if there's a couple skip passes and Denver can get off the ball, settle in. That's all I'm saying. Because then we're in for a game. Yeah. We'll know this game early, I think. We'll know the tempo of it early on both sides.
With that, I'm going to say Carolina. Wow, I'm sorry, I got distracted. I'm watching an amazing golf putt in the wind and the terrible conditions at Torrey Pines right now. That was amazing. I'm going to say Panthers just because, like I said, I 2 weeks to prep for Cam Newton for Denver's defense. That helps a ton. Mm-hmm. But it's Cam Newton, you guys. It's I've seen this consistent pattern of teams that just, it's difficult to stop him.
Scores?
What now?
Scores?
Oh, we can throw scores if you would like.
I know, we're not going to keep track of it or anything. I'm just curious as to what you guys,
Well, yeah, I'm going to say Panthers. I'm going to say probably, I'm going to say what I'd like to see, 31-27, Carolina. That's what I would like to see. Now, what I probably will see is more of the lines of maybe 35, 38, 20, 21.
35, 38 to 21? You think they're going to win that big?
Yeah. Be going off of what you said, where they have a run later in the game and kind of put it away.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking it's going to be 24-21 going into the fourth with Denver has a chance to win, maybe a turnover, and then Carolina scores.
You're hoping for a repeat of last year.
No, I'm going to go 31-21 Panthers, and again, 24-21 game in the fourth quarter. Panthers pull a late touchdown out.
Okay, Matt?
The only team to beat Carolina this year, Atlanta, was the only team to keep them under 20 points. I think the first 1 to 20 wins this football game. I really do.
I like that. You're right. I watched that game too. Yeah.
And I'm not mocking you guys whatsoever because Carolina's Carolina, but man, I've only seen the Denver defense give up 30 plus once this year.
Yeah.
And so I would have to see it to believe it. And because I like Denver, I think Denver keeps Carolina under 20. So I go, Denver's so bad in the red zone. It makes me want to not say 21. I'll say 2017 Denver. Wow. I think they win it on a late field goal. I do.
Okay. What was I going to say? I had something. In that, by the way, that's great. You bring up that Atlanta game. And talking about, if Peyton Manning just gets a little bit of time, the big touchdown in that game, Matt Ryan to Julio Jones, outrageous catch. Matt Ryan got some time bought. The pressure was still coming from Carolina on that play, and he had enough time to just chuck it up there and let Julio Jones do the rest. Now, I don't know if you could say that there's a Julio Jones-like player on Denver's football team.
Heck yeah, there is.
Who is it?
Demarius Thomas?
Yeah.
Oh, come on. I mean, he not this year, but when
physically,
when Denver had their record-setting offensive season, he was the best receiver in the league, and Emmanuel Sanders is the fourth best or third best. Oh yeah, please get out of here.
I don't know, but anyways, that's what I'm saying. That is probably. If Denver can do that, and I hope they're analyzing the crap out of that Atlanta game, because certainly a good possibility.
I hope they pay attention to one play in that game as well, which was the play, and I think it was fourth down, where Cam Newton just went absolute God mode and trucked 3 Atlanta defenders, spun around, and reached for a first down and got a first down because that's what you got to stop.
That's a good one.
And it's almost unstoppable. I mean, he's just out of this world. But great game, I'm sure.
Let's hope
it's going to be.
Yeah, let's hope.
You're listening to Delay of Game,
a sports talk podcast. On Facebook.com/Delay of Game and on Twitter @DOG_podcast.
This is what's really going on with Brent Bonfleur.
So as if we haven't talked about Cam Newton and Peyton Manning enough, primarily going to focus on Cam Newton here and all the backlash that he's been getting in recent weeks about him being unprofessional and, is this a race thing? Why don't people like Cam Newton? And I hear that, I'm like, who doesn't like Cam Newton? He's great. I mean, he's been the face of the NFL for this entire season in my mind. And I don't understand where the vitriol and the hate is coming from. So we talked a few weeks ago during the segment about teams having fun and how Carolina is one of those fun teams. And yeah, Cam Newton, when he scores a touchdown, he dabs or he's Superman, pulls his jersey, or whatever. But then he runs to the stands and gives the ball to a kid. These kids love this. And people are like, oh, he's unprofessional. Well, he's not taunting the other team, right? He's not going up to their players, getting in their face. He's just celebrating, which almost every player celebrates when they score a touchdown in the NFL. And then people say, well, it's because he's black. I was like, what? I don't understand where any of this is coming from, where any of it is founded. And it's sort of a head scratcher because I think he's only been good for the NFL. There's been no scandal with someone like Tom Brady, or even to a much lesser degree Peyton Manning with the HGH thing. Ben Roethlisberger with sexual assault. Yeah, Cam had the thing in college with his dad, right? And we're receiving money.
Scam Newton.
Yeah, Scam Newton. And hey, I was all against Cam Newton when he was in college because
you and I both.
Yeah, against Florida. But I really think, and when he first came in the NFL too, he was a diva. I mean, like big time. He really had personality issues, and he just couldn't handle it. But I really think he's turned the corner, and I think he's done that, but kept part of what makes him Cam Newton, which is this like fun personality. Sure, maybe it's not the most professional. Maybe he's not boring like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, these guys. I say boring, I mean, it's exciting to watch, Tom Brady with like fire in his eyes going down the field, or Peyton Manning, as we say, the most cerebral player maybe to ever play football. But, Cam has his own thing, and that's just, it's doing a dance after he scores a touchdown. And it's mind-boggling that people dislike him for that. And, I mean, the obvious thing to look at is, well, they're just jealous that, one, he's not playing for their team, or two, he beat their team. I remember there was a Seahawks fan wrote an open letter to Cam Newton. I don't know if you guys saw this, like, just blasting him for tearing down the flag, the Seahawks flag. And I'm sorry, but people are like, oh, yes. This is powerful, Cam. You need to turn a word that gets thrown on way too much. This is powerful, Cam. You need to tone it down. You need to act like every other NFL corporate robot that's out there. And I just laughed. I was like, really? You brought your team's flag into a stadium, and yeah, he went and he tore it down. I mean, what do you expect? That's just fun. It's not like he went and waved it in the face of Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson. I mean, let Cam be Cam. As far as I'm concerned, I think it's a good thing for the NFL. And I don't understand it. Maybe you guys have different opinions, but why all the hate for Cam Newton?
Man, what is it that brings sports fans to like regard their league/team/players with such sanctimony? I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Like it's like because you think about it, like what would cause somebody to write an open letter?
They
ran
it on the Seattle News,
right? But like they think the NFL is a cathedral, know, like it's the holiest of ground.
But
I know it is anything.
Just
but.
Look at Greg Hardy and Ray Rice and Adrian Peterson.
I just don't. I don't get the. I think what part of it comes down to is like this 4-generation old or 4-generation rooted idea of like, well, when we first got together, in 1878, we were playing the sport for sportsmanship, on a Sunday afternoon with tea afterwards, that doesn't exist anymore. Like, I don't know what they're talking about.
Play for millions of dollars.
Right. And to care at all about like what somebody does after a touchdown, I'm just going to use the word, it's lame, man. It's just lame to care about that kind of stuff. I don't like there are so many better things to care about. But to your point too about like everyone, I think there's a converse to this too about like how many people do care. Like I know my mom cares, like, and that like my section of the country, like northeastern Nevada, rural northeastern Nevada, man, that's like, there is a culture clash there. And as stupid as it is, it's like they'll back Peyton Manning over Cam Newton any day.
Oh, yeah.
So I get that, like, there are some people who care. And maybe in that realm, like, we need to culturally discuss these kinds of things. But, man, I'm kind of like you, Brent. And, like, I'm walking around, at least in our demographic and in a lot of demographics throughout the country from what I read, I don't think people are like, man, I hate Cam, and so I wonder where this issue goes if we just kind of don't talk about it, because I don't think it's something that needs talked about, like what happens if no one ever asks the question and Cam's just a player, you know, like Cam's just a player who has a lot of fun, number one, and number two, Cam's a player separate from a quarterback, because I think you make a great point, like, tell me something Cam does that a receiver or running back doesn't do when they get in the end zone. And no one says a word. So, like...
But you see, that's the thing. Because quarterbacks, and only quarterbacks, are looked to as the leaders, not just of the team, but in the NFL, in how they portray themselves.
Yeah. But why? Like, that's what I'm talking about. Why is there a sanctimony like that? Why do we as fans need to look at the league and say, you need symbols. You need Peyton Manning, and every quarterback needs to mold themselves after Peyton Manning so that we can symbolically look up to you and put a poster on the wall or something. Like, it's a game. Like, you don't need that. You don't need a symbol, you know?
And the other thing, too, is this is what I believe one of the reasons why people do not like Cam Newton, which I think is honestly kind of dumb overall. I'm siding with the fact that this is all, the way Peyton carries himself, that's great. I'm fine with that. But for fans who watch Cam Newton, when they see him, dabbing and doing the Superman thing and doing the touchdown celebration, they associate that with celebration in a general sense. We sometimes players, they're going and taunting in the defender's face. And, that's something to get them all riled up. Cam Newton doesn't do that. He still celebrates. But then he goes and takes the football and gives it to a kid. And that throws people for a loop right then and there. They're like already up in arms, like, hey, you're celebrating. And all of a sudden he goes and gives the football to a kid. And they're like, huh? What? It gets them all weirded out because they're like in this mentality of hating him. And now he's helping a kid. How can I hate that? I can't do that. I'm all mixed emotions, and people don't like that because they want to hate or appreciate. As dumb as that sounds, that's what fans want to do, because that's the way fans are geared. They're geared towards hating or, going nuts and praising and respecting the guy who, like Peyton Manning, is just, he's just pumping his fists like, yep, did my job, next play.
I'm fired up about this now because, like, I hear what you're saying, and I hear the this isn't a criticism of you at all, Ryan. It's just like you inspire these thoughts in me with what you're talking about of like, I picture somebody sitting there watching an NFL game And like, I don't know what percentage, 50%, maybe higher. 50% of them watching it is like rooting for Peyton to show sportsmanship. Like, that's, I'll use the term again, that is so lame. Like, if you're watching sports, if you're watching sports to
pretty
be like,
obvious, isn't it?
It is obvious. Like, if you're watching sports to see like cultural statements made, like societal, like, yeah, this, we can get behind this,
right,
you know, like,
yeah. It's not running for president.
I'm sorry, like, yeah, like, it's a game, man. Like, if anything, because, man, I've said it before on the show, fandom is kind of dumb, you know, like, sports fandom is kind of stupid sometimes. So, like, if
play
anything,
back my rant for you about me talking about that exact subject.
yeah. So, if anything, watch it because, like, you like to see the game. I mean, I almost wish, like, the screen would, after every play, the screen would go black so that all we could focus on is, like, okay, that was a good play.
Right.
Well, I don't know what they
show
did
the
afterwards.
replay of the play.
We don't know what they did afterwards, but, man, there are some people, Ryan's right, and, like, these people make me want to, like, hit myself in the face because there are some people who, like, they watch the game and they're like, you know what, I'm going to tune in today because that Peyton Manning, he's a class act. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's just lame to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is great for Peyton. I mean, it's good to represent yourself
it is
that
great,
way.
yeah, but that shouldn't be the only reason.
Right, exactly. It's like, no, I don't like Peyton Manning because he carries himself that way. I mean, it's part of it, but most of it is just because he's an insanely good quarterback.
And let's remember, though, we're talking about two different quarterbacks who grew up in two different generations.
Yeah.
That's another reason why they carry themselves the way they do.
That's what I was talking about. It's like, it's this, my grandpappy smoking a corncob pipe in 1895. You know, that's like...
That's not true!
That's the demographic that we're talking about.
Right.
It's a different era, though. Like, it's not there anymore.
Like you said, like probably 50% of people are watching and hating on Cam Newton, idolizing Peyton Manning, and those people are probably 50 or older, or 40 or older and under. It's the opposite.
It makes you
like
wonder, and I wonder what you guys. I want you guys' opinion on this. Do you think that this problem dies out? Like, do you think that? I think it does. Like, just like they always talk about, like, the steroid users not getting into the Hall of Fame in baseball probably dies out because the old sports writers, like, who keep them out, die out, and our generation has a lot of opinions on things on sports. I think the whole, like, Peyton class act thing and, like, people getting mad about Cam Newton totally dies out. I think our generation, our demographic could care less. What do you think, Ryan?
Oh, yeah.
It probably will. It's not going to be soon. It's going to take a few years.
20 years.
Yeah,
or so,
but it probably, it will. And you know what, honestly, it might be even longer than that because some of us nowadays still are in that mindset of we don't like what you're doing and we're going to be like that for the rest of our lives. So it might take even longer. But as far as a switch goes where it turns into a majority who don't care, that will happen sooner than later. As for everybody, that may never happen.
Right.
You still might have people here and there who are that's great that you bring up the baseball steroid thing. We might have to talk about that in a later show. Who are still going to be set as with what they believe, and that is these players took steroids. They don't belong in the Hall of Fame. That's it. Right. They close the book. Done. Those type of people will still exist. They probably won't exist in the majority of fashion like we see now.
I just think we'll transition.
Yeah, and going. I also think too with this too, with Cam Newton again. I can't stress the point enough where people don't like seeing, I guess flip-floppy people, and that's not that's the only thing I can come up with. That's not what Cam Newton is. My point with bringing that up is Cam Newton. Yeah, he does the celebration stuff, and then he goes and gives a football to a kid. That messes with people's minds. It throws them for a loop because again, fans want to go one singular direction.
Right.
They don't want to be, go straight and then all of a sudden, boom, they're taking a 90-degree turn and they're going sideways because something like Cam Newton giving a football to a kid just happened. They don't like that. Fans don't want that. They want one thing and one thing only. Mm-hmm. They're not getting that with Cam Newton, and that's, I think, another reason why fans don't like him, because he throws them for a loop, because he does his dabbing. He does the Superman celebration, and then there goes a football to a little girl in the front row or a little boy in the front row, whoever it may be. There goes the football to a kid, and fans are just like,
exactly.
I don't know how to feel now about that. I was all fired up. I don't like him, and now he's doing that, but that's great. But he's not. He's doing the celebration, and mixed emotions.
That evil Cam Newton. They must be child actors. They've been planted in the front row for him to improve his image.
They don't like it, and that's they think that's a sneaky way of getting around the celebration stuff.
Yeah. He's just celebrating.
In a way,
Everyone
it
does
kind
it.
of is, but it's really not.
It's really not.
And also the fact too, we've never seen that before.
Yeah.
We've never ever seen that before, and now we are, and it's just it's throwing people for a loop. So let's move on here. Actually, we're gonna move on to this next topic. I really want to get this in. We're still working on a possible hockey podcast, and I'd like for that to happen. That's still in the works. But for now, for the first time, I think, well, not for the first time, like the fourth time maybe ever in the history of Delay of Game, we are bringing on hockey talk onto this show. And it's coming in the form of...
And now to a story about someone in the sports world who was just being too selfish or immature. It's time for...
It's your world, and we're just living in it. Matt Rigby.
Well, I'm not sure, and you and I spoke about this, Ryan.
Right.
I'm not sure that we can blame Dennis Weidman for... Like, I'm not sure that we could say he was being one of those two things, selfish or immature. But how about we say
the NHL.
That the NHL's being selfish?
I should have said that before we started this. It's the NHL's
right.
problem,
This is the NHL being selfish and possibly immature.
Mm-hmm.
So to review, Dennis Weidman in a game, it was the last game before the All-Star break. Calgary was playing Nashville on Tuesday night, and Dennis Weidman, who has been lauded since this happened, from the Boston media where he used to play, from the Washington media where he used to play, has been lauded as a guy who would seemingly never do something like this. I mean, he's a physical player, but he's not a dirty player, and that's a line that you draw in hockey pretty early. He's been lauded as a guy who wouldn't do this. He took a hit in the boards in the corner, or up against the boards in the corner. Got up, was rather woozy, but man, in my personal estimation, hockey players are the toughest athletes on the planet, and they refuse unless they are like incapable of doing so. They refuse to lay on if they're incapable of getting up, they refuse to lay on the ice. So he gets up, he kind of wobbles his way over towards the bench. It's clear that he needs a line change because he's up against the boards. And in the NHL, the linesmen, the two referees who watch the offsides lines, they stand next to the boards most of the game. Dennis Weidman, to me, the way I interpret it, he was concussed and sees the linesman, thinks it's a guy that's going to come hit him. Dennis Weidman plays for the Flames, thinks it's a Predator player that's going to come hit him.
And the Predators are wearing white uniforms,
right,
too,
and therefore cross-checks the linesman from behind and knocks him over. Now, Weidman then proceeds to the bench as if what he did was in the ramifications of fine, in his mind anyway, and gets evaluated, albeit hastily, for a concussion. And then everything snowballs from there. The next day, the NHL suspends Weidman indefinitely. After the game, Weidman says, listen, I didn't see the referee there. I didn't notice it was the linesman. I thought it was a Predator player. It was a lapse in my judgment. I apologize. But man, that causes a firestorm. We have a lot of people on television throughout the day going back, watching the tape, on the internet, going back, watching the tape, and it certainly looks like he sees him because his head's up. And so the question then becomes this really, and this is where I'm attacking the NHL, this really murky, cloudy situation of why is Weidman having to blame himself, and why is the NHL suspending him when in reality Dennis Weidman never should have been on the ice again to begin with? Because I think the popular sentiment is that Weidman was concussed. However, the NHL could not fall back on Weidman being concussed because Dennis Weidman stayed in the game. And you start to look at, why did he stay in the game? Why does he have to face the suspension for staying in the game and not coming out with a concussion? Because the NHL's concussion protocol is such a joke. Their policy is such a joke that it's created. I mean, you look at the problems in the NFL and the possibility in the NFL of the league being taken down and subject to possibly not being able to move forward in the future because and a lot of lawsuits and stuff because of concussions coming into play. The NHL is dealing with the same problem, but they're not dealing with it at the same time because they're not taking and instituting rules on the bench that say this has to happen before a player can come back into the game when there's a possibility of a concussion. I watched a game in the playoffs last year, and I was telling Ryan about this before we went live with this podcast. He, as a goalie, took a puck in a playoff game about 120 miles an hour on a slap shot off the mask. It left him woozy. It broke his mask, and you can tell that there's for the next couple whistles he's discombobulated, out of sorts. And after finally about the third whistle, he comes to the bench and you're thinking, okay, good. As you're watching, you're thinking, okay, good. He's now going to get evaluated for a concussion, A, or B, diagnosed with a concussion, taken out of the game, and have his health saved. Instead, the solution and the protocol for the NHL was to simply exchange his mask that had been broken with a slap shot for an effective mask. So they change a faulty mask for an effective mask and call it good. Man, if that happened in the NFL, if a player had a concussion and they just give him a new helmet, there would be the world would end. And so instead the NHL gets away with simply suspending their own player. They suspend their own player. They don't take any ownership for having lack of a protocol. And they continue to turn, man, this whole podcast has been about turning a blind eye today, hasn't it? They continue to turn a blind eye towards player safety, and no one puts the pressure on them to do anything about it. And
You gotta be kidding me!
They hide under the ruse with this Dennis Weidman situation of him just doing something wrong, and there's nothing he can say about, well, maybe I had a concussion, because then they'll ask him, well, why didn't you come out of the game? And he'll face his own personal ridicule. So it's ridiculous of the NHL to not be more strict with this policy and not be more stringent with their concussion protocol moving forward. Maybe now, finally, and because I've made this point, it could be an issue of the NHL not receiving enough attention. Maybe this mishap receiving enough attention this week will finally cause more pressure on the league to do something about player safety and to protect their own rather than protect the institution.
Yeah. Man, we're all going on rants today, man. That's why I started the music up. It's like, I'll tell you what. What's going off, man? All sorts of stupid crap going on all over the place in sports. It's pathetic. That might be our ending music for today. No happy regular ending music. Just a fired up podcast, man. All right, let's get to. I think we covered all we needed to cover, so let's jump into the predictions.
Let me update.
Yeah. Matt Rigby with the update.
Last week we were still one game still in the balance. We had two that needed completed. Or no, I'm sorry, we had one that needed completed. Clippers Raptors needed completed. I lost that. You two both won that game as the Raptors won.
All right.
That ran our total for last week, with one game still yet to be played. Bulls Clippers still has to be played today.
Mm-hmm.
But our totals as of now for last week, Brent went 5-6. Ryan and I each went 7-4.
Wow!
Running our grand totals, Ryan's 21-9. I am 19-11.
Hell yeah!
And Brent is 17-13.
Ugh.
Moving forward.
Falling down there, Brent.
But a 4-game drop off, or a
please.
4-game 4-game. What's the term? What's the word?
Swing?
No. A 4-game deficit. There we go.
Yeah.
See, you'll always get the word. A 4-game deficit is not insurmountable.
Oh, no. Man.
You better double check that, my friend.
All right.
That was good.
We'll do it this week.
Yeah, we'll see. We got some good ones. A lot of good college basketball games. And one NBA game. One good NBA game.
All right.
And finally, the Oklahoma City gets some attention, man.
Yeah.
Oh, where's that?
Hell yeah.
Guess where they get it?
Oracle Arena.
The city by the bay, man. Golden State. Oh, man. Warriors and Thunder. Of course I'm going with the Warriors. I'm just going to tell you that, right now, because Golden State's awesome. Brent, Billy Donovan
I
gets
know.
to visit Oracle Arena.
I know.
Your championship
you can't
is
pick
held.
against Billy D.
Yeah!
What the heck? We'll go Oklahoma City.
Oh, wow.
This will be my crazy pick. Now, the rest of them, I have to pretty much go with the favorite because I got to make up my deficit here.
Have you guys seen the stat lines over the last 5 games on Kevin Durant? They are insane.
He's putting up
he
crazy
has
numbers.
gone crazy in the last week, 2 weeks. I mean, he's put Russell Westbrook on the back shelf, even though Russ had another triple-double this week. But
and you know what's sad is nobody's paying attention to it.
Yeah.
Not
and it makes me tempted to pick OKC. I'll take the Warriors.
All right, fair enough. College basketball. We jump into all these games we got now. We start with North Carolina and Louisville. Brent Bonfleur.
I think I picked Louisville last week, didn't I? So I'm going to go North Carolina.
North Carolina it is. Matt Rigby.
I'll go UNC. Louisville looked so terrible against Virginia this week. They didn't even put up 50 points. I don't think Louisville's that good. I like UNC.
I got North Carolina as well. West Virginia at Iowa State up in Ames.
Yeah.
Brent, this is a good one.
Man, this is
Gators put it to West Virginia yesterday.
That they did, yes.
I know. I'm going to
Brent Bonfleur's Florida Gators.
Cyclones.
Yeah?
Yep.
All right. Iowa State, Matt?
I'll go Iowa State as well at home.
That's a Iowa State across the board. Notre Dame, Miami. Brent?
You can't ever pick Miami, Notre Dame.
I'll go Miami. I think they bounce back.
Okay.
Can't see them losing at home twice in the last week.
I'm going to go Notre Dame with that one. Villanova and Providence. Very good Big East matchup. This actually, I think, is going to end up being a top 10 matchup. And I think it actually might already be, and could be even farther than that. Brent, what do you got?
I'm going to go Nova.
Okay.
Nova and Providence played it out a couple weeks ago into overtime, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, that was a good game. Where's the game? Providence?
It is at Providence, yes.
I'll go Villanova.
Nice.
Oh my God!
Yeah, I'm going to go with Providence.
Of course you are.
Going with the home team, man. Providence all the way. Purdue is at Maryland.
Yeah.
What do you got, Brent? Big Ten matchup?
Yeah, it'll be a good one. Maryland.
By the way, funny story. Maryland is at Nebraska this week. Last year, Matt Rigby and Connor Happer called that game.
Ah.
That was one of the best-sounding basketball games I had heard yet. Better than me and John Kipper calling Wisconsin until Michael Dixon and Matt Rigby called the game together. And then after that, I was like, all right, best duo in the country ever. Mark it up. Matt, you got Purdue, Maryland. What do you got?
Man, we all had the privilege of seeing A.J. Hammonds last night, didn't we? It makes you tempted to... Did you guys watch the
I did not watch that game.
Well, then you didn't have the privilege, man. And he is an animal. Man,
I already knew that.
Yeah, I was awoken last night to that reality. Oh, geez. I know Brent has to get out of here, so I got to hurry this.
I got 5 minutes. We're good.
Gosh. Maryland. Yeah,
Maryland?
Purdue can't go on the road yet. I don't think they're good enough.
Yeah.
They're too one-dimensional. I've said all year Maryland's the best team in college basketball. I truly believe that.
Yeah. I'd still say Virginia, but that's just a little bit of bias right there. I got a friend who is a big Virginia fan. South Carolina. Get this. Get ready for this one, folks. Stand by here. South Carolina and Texas A&M.
Yeah.
I cannot remember ever in the history of delay of game predicting South Carolina men's basketball against, nonetheless, Texas A&M.
Oh, the SEC's
men's
best sports
basketball.
conference.
You kidding me?
Century.
Wait, this is a football game?
No, this is you would think,
Right.
quite honestly.
Exactly.
Yeah, football in February. No, it is a basketball game, and Brent Bonfleur, you are up.
I'm going to go Texas A&M.
All right. What if I told you
A&M.
South Carolina has 2 losses on the season,
Who'd A&M stick it
and
to?
they are not ranked
I
either.
would say they're going to have 3.
Who'd A&M stick it to last night?
Iowa State, and they didn't really stick it to them. It was a good game. I watched the whole thing. It was really
I
good.
use the term stick it to just to describe a win, I guess.
Yeah, right.
That should be a blowout win.
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M. A&M across the board. I hope this is a good one, though.
Gamecocks got to show me something before I can pick them in a game
Yeah,
like
true.
that.
I still can't believe they have 2 losses and they're not ranked. I don't understand that.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Back to North Carolina and back to Notre Dame. They're matching up. Brent Bonfleur.
I picked UNC earlier, so let's hedge it a little bit. I'll pick UNC again.
All right.
Yeah, my thinking's the same. We get down to these later games, and I just hedge them.
Yeah.
Because I'll say I picked against Notre Dame twice. I picked in favor of North Carolina twice. One of them's got to formulate.
There you go.
Right.
Fair enough. Finally, Baylor, West Virginia. West Virginia back into this here. I got North Carolina beating Notre Dame, too, by the way. Brent Bonfleur.
Gosh, so West Virginia, it's so hard keeping track of these Big 12 teams.
Oh, yeah.
One of them beats one the next week, then that one loses to this one.
That's how the Big 12 works. Football,
nuts.
baseball, basketball,
So West
whatever.
Virginia is the last to lose, right?
For you?
No. Just
Yes, they lost yesterday.
they lost yesterday,
yeah,
right?
yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with West Virginia.
Okay. Matt Rigby.
Yeah, I think, number one, West Virginia's the better team. I don't take Baylor seriously yet, although I think they're good. They got to win a couple more quality games. And UVA, that's Virginia. UVW, no, I can't use the acronym.
West Virginia
is at home.
You use the Mountaineers. How about that?
WVU, which is a hard one to say. WVU.
See, I was starting with a U. I'm going back.
What, University of West Virginia? No, it's UWV.
No, it's
No, it's University of West
I
Virginia.
always think of it the way it's abbreviated on television.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Same
So that
here.
would be WVU.
yeah.
Well, they got it wrong.
Oh, okay.
It's definitely University of West Virginia.
All right.
So I think.
All right,
I don't
Google
know.
that real quick.
Yeah, you better hurry up. Facebook.com/delay of game. Twitter.com/DOG_podcast. Of course, we're on YouTube. Check all those out.
Go Broncos.
Yeah, and our website, the Delay of Game podcast.wordpress.com. Brent Bonfleur.
It is West Virginia University.
Really?
Yep.
Well, we just all learned something. How did I get
Not
that
all of
wrong,
us.
man?
We knew it.
How did I get that wrong? Oh my gosh, that's embarrassing. And you know what? With that, we're done with the show. I'm closing out the show with the rant music because that's just what today was, man. It was just so bad. It's just, well, not bad. It was just filled with rants and crap. And I apologize, but sometimes the crap in sports, it just has to be addressed, and I guess only on Delay of Game. See you next week. No, we'll see you in 2 weeks. No show next week. 2 weeks from now.
Enjoy the Super Bowl.
And the blizzard.
Yeah.